All right, everyone, it's poll analysis time. A little bit happier than talking about decapitated babies, admittedly. Michigan and Pennsylvania coming in with new polling. Also a slew of new polling. Republican primary, Dem primary, where RFK Jr. has dropped for an independent bid. Trump v. Biden matchups. Biden v. DeSantis matchups as well. We'll contrast those because I still see DeSantis fans fixating on any singular poll showing DeSantis with an advantage. But if you look at the aggregate, Trump narrowly edges Biden out and has been running a little bit ahead of him for months now, whereas DeSantis doesn't and never has. He has always been at least slightly and often a bit further behind. I'll just put that out there. DeSantis is fundamentally done. I know that there's another Republican debate in a few weeks, but it's not going to move the metric any further than the first two did. If anything, what we saw from DeSantis, who really is the only person who ever had a period of viability, Haley doesn't come close to it. The fact that she's running ahead of the pack disproportionately in her home state and a bit in New Hampshire is meaningless because she just doesn't have enough national support, I think, to roll it over in the next 3 months into winning either of those states, especially when it looks pretty sure that Trump is going to grab up Iowa and Nevada at a bare minimum. Like, even if he had to scrap it out, and then he's like 30 points ahead anyway in New Hampshire and South Carolina, I don't even know what we're discussing. These are aggregate numbers. And that's why I wanted to fixate on these two polls that you saw the other day. They're exceptionally important. It shows Donald Trump beating the shit out of Joe Biden in Pennsylvania and in Michigan. If Donald Trump takes Pennsylvania and Michigan, I think that puts him, with the reliably red states, over 270 right there. Pennsylvania is a big one. Or very close to that margin. Maybe he needs like any other one competitive state. If I assumed that these numbers were correct, and I don't, I'll get into why, I would expect him to grab up Virginia. I would expect him to have no problem in the Carolinas. He'd get Georgia at that point, probably. Wisconsin would be on the table. Hell, he could win by further than he did in 2016. If I'm looking at Biden's disapproval and assume he's nominee, and right now the economy's teetering because of all the wars breaking out, and Biden's about to take a hell of a hit in approval, I think, over the various mistakes that helped lead up to the Holy Land being inflamed with war once again. I don't think that's going to go over too well with Joe Biden's remaining supporters. Some of those people will turn on him at this point. It's basically a series of mistakes comparable to what happened with the Afghanistan withdrawal. That really didn't help Joe Biden's approval now, did it? It was a soft reduction in approval, but you don't have long enough necessarily to make up that much of a loss. Here's the thing. These two singular polls show effectively Donald Trump trashing Joe Biden, utterly crushing him by a margin of winning considerably ahead of 2016. If I compare those metrics to 2016 matchup polling in the general, so I'm comparing the general aggregate to the state aggregates, and you don't have enough polls to establish an aggregate. These are singular polls, that's why I'm being cautious. The margin would be kind of similar. Instead of Hillary leading narrowly in those states, you get Trump leading by a beefy amount. Instead of in the general Trump being, 4 points behind, he's now like a point ahead. That swing of margin is within the margin of error, but I've only got singular polls right now to actually look at. I would caution, therefore, that it's more likely that both of them are outliers. I think that it's perfectly within the realm of possibility that Donald Trump takes Pennsylvania and Michigan. I think it's possible he takes Wisconsin. I think he's got a good shot in Nevada. I think he's got a good shot at Virginia. I think he's got a good shot in Georgia. I think that basically the median would be New Hampshire, and if that ends up being the case, he wins re-election again, possibly by a larger margin than in 2016. But we're not sure yet. We don't have enough polling. It's just like if I listen to polling, Donald Trump is absolutely going to lambaste everyone and lap them quite literally, literally leading by more than 50 points over the rest of the entire field in Nevada. But I only have one recent poll. It doesn't do anything for me. Go look through the polling, and when you look through those aggregates, be careful. Look at the dating of the actual poll. Again, it's entirely possible that based on the series of economic, foreign policy, and especially at this point, border blunders by the Biden administration. He did a 180 on the border, partially, pissing off the left while not really ingratiating himself to anyone because Abbott came out and reminded everyone it was actually him building the wall and Biden sort of sat on it this whole time. The economy is beginning to show signs of teetering. Oil prices have just surged ahead. That shows no sign of stopping. That'll probably be a thing for a while. Debt is becoming a problem, personal debt and business debt. Lending and rates and so forth are getting wonky. If you have a recession or even more economic woes, like when we were at peak inflation or something, I like how they talk about, we defeated inflation, it was a soft landing. I don't think you've landed yet. So hold on to your assholes, boys. If you get any combination of that plus the unsecure border to the point where state and local level Democrats are jumping down the Biden admin's throat, and at the same time you have these foreign policy failures, it's entirely feasible that Donald Trump sweeps everything up. And I don't think at this point he has any problems in the primaries, because we're getting towards the end, folks. It's the middle of October. Chugging along through that, you get a couple of months, we switch over to 24, there's really no more time left for campaigning as far as the primaries go, unless somebody does historically well against Trump in the first few states. There's not going to be a lot left in that field. I like how that one, I can't even remember his name, it was only 2 days ago, he dropped out and endorsed Nikki Haley. He was running at 0.2 in the aggregate. I'm sure Nikki Haley appreciates the 0.1 that'll actually go her way. That really moves the metric. Nikki Haley, 2024. In analyzing these polls, I'm simply using caution. Everyone was immediately talking about how, well, this is evidence that Trump is going to win the election. Look at how far ahead he is of where he was before. Yes, but it's a single poll. By the way, why aren't we getting more Nevada polls? It's one of the first 4 states that goes for the GOP primary. Why are you even bothering to do matchup polling, generally speaking, even in swing states, ahead of the general when you don't even know who the nominees are? Yes, we presume it'll be Trump v. Biden, but that could end up not being the case. Biden could croak. Biden could stand down and refuse to campaign after pressure from his party. Donald Trump could be precluded from the GOP in a brokered convention. Any of a various number of things could occur here. And so I would caution that while general polling can be useful, it's not quite so useful at this particular time. At this juncture, you should be primarily focusing on primary polling and effectively Biden's approval and disapproval, which I can't wait over the next couple of weeks watching what happens to that metric. I imagine that it'll be pretty steep. That's about all. Peace out.